Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the 42nd President of the United States, William Jefferson Clinton.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you and good afternoon. Welcome to CGI America. Ladies and gentlemen, 6 years ago when we started the CGI meeting in New York, I had wondered if it would prove to be a fool's errand. I mean, after all, who wants to come to New York at the opening of the United Nations where it takes an hour to drive a block? To a meeting where, unlike Davos, you don't get to ski, and you can't come back unless you promise to do something and keep your promise. But it's worked pretty well, and over the last 6 years, we've had about 2,000 commitments that already have helped 300 million people in 170 countries, including 250 helping America. I'll say more about that in a minute. So as we continue to struggle with this economy and the low rate of new business formation and job creation, several of us who've been involved in CGI began to wonder whether we could do one exclusively for America. And I wondered again, well, maybe it'll prove to be a fool's errand. If all the questions were so-called macroeconomic questions, that is the level of investment, the level of public investment, the tax level, all these things that are beyond the ken of most everybody here, it might be. But I don't believe that. I believe that in a free society where people have choices to make and options to choose, but where there is not perfect knowledge of all those options, creating more knowledge, disseminating it, and inspiring people with the confidence to make those decisions can make a real difference. There are more than 750 people here, leaders from businesses, nonprofits, all levels of government. 3 cabinet members will come, for which I am very grateful. We'll have them committed to partner to generate economic growth from commitments we already know about through green buildings and energy, workforce development, infrastructure, and manufacturing. For those of you who have made a commitment and those who will, I thank you. I'd also like to thank the companies and people who made this meeting possible. I thank the Sheraton for hosting us in this great facility. I thank our sponsors, JB and MK Fritzler Family Foundation, Tom Golisano, the Dow Chemical Company, the Pete Peterson Foundation, and ExxonMobil. We are going to try to apply here the CGI model to the U.S. economy. And I know some of you are here at a CGI event for the first time, so let me say again, at our previous meetings in New York, of the 2,000 commitments we've made, more than 250 focused exclusively on the U.S. Some of them will be featured here because they'll be expanded. Thanks to them, there are organizations funding entrepreneurs, building solar panels, putting electric vehicles on the road, training young people for green jobs, and making more sustainable economic models in both urban and rural areas. Over the next couple of days, we're going to talk about how we can best tap the potential of all the communities represented here, and how you can tell other people across America what you learned and show them how they can do something to create more jobs. We know we're part of a massive economy, and there are as I said earlier, macroeconomic decisions which have been made or will be made, which will shape the range of possibilities. But we also know that we have the power to turn things around, and that every job matters. After all, most of the jobs created over the last 30 years have been created by small businesses, most of them 5 years old or younger. And there are facts in the American economy today that give me hope, and things in my own experience that give me hope. And I'll just say a few and then introduce with enormous pride our host mayor, who is living proof of why this meeting is worth having. First, notwithstanding the continuing unresolved issues in the home mortgage market and some of the debt overhang, the banks of America now have well over $2 trillion in cash not committed to loans. Even if you subtract from that number, dollar for dollar, the value of the mortgages that are still open to question, there's still about $2 trillion uncommitted to loans. Now, there's nowhere near $2 trillion in loan demand out there now, but there's more than is presently being satisfied. And if people understood all the options available, the demand might grow greater still. One of the really impressive commitments that I'll announce later proves that. If you had very conservative loan to reserve ratios of 10 to 1, that means the capacity of lending is $20 trillion. If we had $20 trillion in new economic activity, it would end the American and the global economic slowdown in 15 minutes. Second, companies that are headquartered in the United States but operate around the world have about $2 trillion in their treasury not yet committed to investment in other nations or to return to the shareholders or distribution to management and employees. That means they do wish to participate in America's economic recovery, but for a variety of reasons are not yet doing so. So that's the first thing I want to say. Second, I believe this meeting can be helpful because even today, some places are doing better than others because of microeconomic decisions. What I was talking about is the art of the deal backstage. One of the most interesting things, I don't want to jump the gun, but one of our first panelists, Haley Barbour, is the governor of Mississippi. In his former life as a senator, he was the chairman of the Republican National Committee. Haley Barbour made such a good deal that Terry McAuliffe, the former chairman of the Democratic National Committee, decided to put a plant he bought from China into Haley Barbour's state. That is the ultimate deal. Now, we're laughing about it, but why am I saying that? This was a decision made in the current environment based on the economic realities. When I was a governor, we had in the 1980s, a terrible economic climate in the middle of the country. And those of you of a certain age will remember that then people were predicting that almost permanently we would have what was called a bi-coastal economy. That the coasts would flourish, they would be high-tech gardens of Eden. Not evil, Eden. Only the people in the middle of the country called it evil. And that's just because we were jealous. They would be high-tech gardens of Eden, but the industrial heartland would just be eaten away. But in 1991, when I began to seek the presidency, my state was one of only 8 states in the country that actually gained manufacturing jobs in the 1980s. Because we refused to accept the inevitability of all the projections, and we realized that if our microeconomics was good enough and investment were available, we could change the existing reality. So that's why we're all here. We think we can make a difference.